But when you talk about counterpicking, there's something that you can't counter, Brian, and that is skill. So I want to talk a bit about things in that realm right now. There's always a bit of a question about reads versus reactions, and I'm hoping that we can add something interesting to that topic. I'm interested in hearing just what you think about it as a whole. When it comes to reads and reactions, are they completely separate? How are they related, or which is more important, if you could say?
Well, we've touched on this topic plenty of times, right? When we do our match analysis, is that a read? Is that a reaction? What is a reaction really? And what it even boils down to, like, the most fundamental question, like, what is neutral, right? Like, people don't actually want to.
No, that's only ball rock players, bro. What is neutral? No, you lost me
only
there,
rocks.
champion. That's a rock move. What? Dash,
what is
dash
neutral?
punch.
What is respect?
Dash punch. Yeah, like, what you talking about?
I gotta have a lot of reads to know that you're on the ground within 3/4 screen. Okay, that's a lot of that's some strong neutral right there. But that said, I think over time people have become more aware that a lot of the time your neutral and your reads and your reactions, even they're more like reads. Like, your reactions are reading your opponent more and more than people had admitted for a long time. If you're reacting to something, generally that means that you're limiting your focus on a certain aspect of the game so that you can shut out all other stimuli, look for a specific avenue of approach, and react to that, right? And so what does that mean? That means you're reading what they're going to be going for. But I think what I want to get on is the semantics of it. Reads versus reactions, it's how much you hedge your bets, right? You cannot call something a read when they clearly are focusing on it and looking for it, and then that to me is a reaction. A read is when you go, you know what, I have no external stimuli to know this is going to work.
You said that's risky. A reaction.
That's a read. A reaction is when you actually even if you're reading they're going to go for something, if you wait for the stimulus of seeing something happen, that's a reaction, even though you're kind of reading. But when you go for a read, that to me means it has to be a hard read.
Yeah.
Which meaning you guess they're going to do something, and if you fail, there's consequences to failure, right? There has to be consequences to the failure. So that to me is a read, because people like to what's really interesting about this is Evo just tweeted out the classic match of Bonchan versus Vi. Way back in the day, ancient history at this point in Street Fighter 4, the Hugo versus Sagat matchup, where Vi, he hadn't even done any command grabs the whole set. He gets a clap approach on Sagat's fireball, gets up close and dashes in, sits there, holds down back, Bonchan jumps away, scared of the command grab, and then he reacts appropriately with the air ultra to grab him out of the air. And then people were saying, like, oh, is that a read? And I don't think that's a read. I don't think that's a read at all.
At all? So to me, like, I think that there's a huge I think people talk too much about reactions. I don't think that word should even pop up too much in the fighting game community, bro. Like, some stuff just looks like a raw reaction, but as you eloquently put it already, it comes down to knowing, okay, my opponent is gonna do this in this spot. So an example that I use is anti-airing, right? It's not easy to learn to have great anti-airs. With Chun-Li, that's an example where sometimes you have a character who their anti-air is just so fast, you can more easily not be looking for the jump because it's a 4-frame startup, right? But even then, sometimes with Chun-Li, you're going to see some people get jumped in on, and they could have pressed light kick, and they didn't because they were just so focused on something else. So if it was a matter of reactions, you have 30-something, 40 frames or something to react to a jump in. So reactions are just completely overrated. Is there any player who you would say that is more? How would I put it? Like more
reaction,
more reactions versus reads. Or more reads versus reactions.
Well, what I want to make clear is there is a huge difference between raw stimuli reaction, like when the light turns green, press the button. That's so different from what a fighting game is, right?
Yeah.
You are not looking for one thing and just reacting to it, which is your example of the anti-airs. If you have a training mode dummy just jump at you and press a jump in, and that's all it did, you would anti-air it every single time, because if you can't react within the total, how many, 1.5 seconds it takes for the character to go through the air and do that, then you're walking into walls in day-to-day life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not about raw reactions, it's about awareness. However, I think there are some players who have a slight edge when it comes to raw reactions, but I just don't think it's that important.
But I do think that overall, these are things that you can improve. Your reads and reactions, right? So when it comes to like anti-airing, I cannot at all be focusing on the air whatsoever. I'm only focused on something, some other part of my strategy on the ground, and they jump, and my body just does the anti-air. Right. But whereas in the past, I had to be like, okay, this dude's gonna jump around this spot right here, and if I anti-air someone, if they jump soon after that, when I'm like, what? There's no way they're gonna jump again after I just anti-aired them, then I will almost always block the jump in or get hit by it. Whereas now my body's gonna anti-air again regardless. So it comes down more so to, I would say, just a repetition and consciously practicing that thing in the back of your mind at least. And reads. It's kind of hard to explain like how you can practice, getting better at reads. But
you can. I think what people miss about reads is, and this is with Street Fighter V as a whole, and this is what, like, when Street Fighter V haters talk about the game, I think they're completely missing this aspect of the game. It's that it's about risk-reward calculations, right? When people are making reads, they're usually for a reason, and that's a reward. And there's a risk calculation behind that. And then they're also trying to infer with the opponent what their risk-reward calculation is on what your option's going to be, right? So it's all about hedging your bets. That's what it all is. It's about calculating probabilities, like with these resources, with this meter, this life situation, the stun, positioning from the screen. Is it worth going for this? Is there an option they're likely to choose? And you're putting all that together, and then you're flipping your coin and you're making your decision, right?
And some of it,
grappler.
Some of it is going in like studying beforehand. Like for example, a read. Of course, we wouldn't normally just put reads out on players like on the show, but let's say Chakotay. We know what the El Chakotay is, bro. Because
but is that a read? Is that a read where their habit? Like, for example, like I know some players, when I play V-Skill 2 ROG, I know they back roll every single time and won't quick rise and punish me. And I call that out on stream before I even go into the match. And then I do it every time. Like, that's a read, sort of, but like, if it's like an autopilot habit.
But does
that really
it's
count?
Interesting. That is a read though, right? Because you don't know that they're going to do that day. But
you have a lot of evidence to support it, though.
But that's what all reads are, though, right? Because even if I never played this person in my life, I'm making reads based off of what he just did in round one, or what she
it's
just
pattern
did in
recognition.
Round 2.
Yeah, it's definitely pattern recognition it's either pattern recognition and build up over time, or conditioning. And that's like the untold story behind the read. Like most of the time, people just see like the weird, like the backdash chase down or the crazy SPD. But really, what it is, it's a lot of series of events that build up to that, and it's not always easy to tell unless you're in the players' heads. But every once in a while, there's also people who just flip a coin. I think that's the beauty of fighting games too.
The last thing I want to bring up on this topic: do you think that some people like will have how do I explain? Like maybe they say something as a reaction, but really it was just a read.
100%. I think it's very difficult for people to be objective about the things they do. And like, I'm gonna call myself out. I have that same problem every once in a while, right? Like I'll be like, oh, I tech that. Did I really? Oh, I reacted to that. Did I really? Oh, there was rollback that messed me up. Was there really? And then you gotta, like, when you calm down, reflect on the footage, be like, maybe there wasn't. Maybe I was capping a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like that happens. So I definitely feel like people sometimes don't know the reason behind what they're doing, but that's fine. I mean, you get the W. But some people operate on instinct. Bro, there's plenty of players who are amazing and they operate purely on instinct. They couldn't tell you verbatim why they did something, but they're amazing players.
I swear that's due 100%, bro. Man just plays like a straight, I don't know if I can say it on Capcom Fighters, but he plays interesting. But it works perfectly for him, and it's hard for him to exactly put it into words. But I've
never been read harder than any player than by Dew. When Dew plays Mika against me, bro, I get grabbed or meatied every single time. And that's a read. That's definitely not a reaction. And how he does it exactly, it's hard for me to say. But you feel the pain of it when you're on the receiving end, that's for sure.